ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्ण समाज्ञया यो धर्म स्थापन रतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We have been studying Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga here, and let us recapitulate. In the preface, Swamiji told that extraordinary phenomena which we call is not extraordinary, it is only subtle, and what we see is gross. And subtle is more powerful than the gross. Subtle is the cause, gross is the effect. And so, ignorant people, superstitious people may think it is something, and the surface scientist denies it. Both are wrong. We should know that there is infinite ocean of knowledge and power behind every one of us. All of us have the right to that infinite ocean of knowledge and power. This was the main theme of the preface. And Swamiji told that we are taking as a textbook Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but we are not studying that because we already studied. We are concerned with Swamiji's Raj Yoga, Swamiji's contribution to the thought of Raj Yoga. And yoga is the method of realizing the truth. And system of Patanjali is based upon the Sankhya system, and we have seen that Sankhya believe in a temporary God in charge of a circle, a cycle. While the yogis believe that God is a guru of the oldest gurus also, the first guru. Neither believe in God in the sense in which the bhaktas or the Vedanti Gyanis believe. And yogis believe that mind is also all-pervading. Then in the introduction, Swamiji told that every knowledge is based upon experience. Other than experience, all knowledge is indirect, which depends upon some experience. Then the field of what is called exact sciences, rather the external sciences, the appeal is to the grosser perception of man, which is universal. We believe. We do not have all the experiences, but we believe that we can have that experience. And because of that, people believe in science more easily. In the field of religion, people think that it is based only on faith and belief. And Swamiji says, I totally deny this. Not only that, we are not religious unless we have some supersensuous experience. That is the start of religion. And when we go to the root of all religions, we find that they are all based upon the experience of the founders of religion. But the claim is made that they had the experience, we cannot have. This Swamiji denies. If one man has experienced something, then before him there have been infinite people who experience that. And after him also there will be infinite people who will experience that. Because human mind is same throughout. Then, but it requires a method. Each science has its own method. Methods of chemistry are different, methods of astronomy are different. So methods of this science of religion are different. We have to train our mind to concentrate and reflect upon mind itself. And then only we can understand the mental activities, and then we can go beyond that mind also. So the science of Raj Yoga will train us, teach us in how to observe our own mind and how to concentrate. But it requires a great deal of practice, and it is a very hard work. Swamiji is warning this. He is not dissuading us from doing that. But we should not go with false hopes and within a week we should not say we did not get anything. So, he is pre-warning us that it requires a great deal of practice, it is a very hard work. Then the question comes, what is the use of it? Swamiji says, first use that the knowledge itself is the use, and secondly, it will remove all possibilities of our being miserable. And the second point involved is that we will be permanently in bliss. Now the method is concentration only. So, concentration we must learn first. Now it is easier to concentrate on external objects, but difficult to concentrate on the mind itself. When we are able to concentrate on the inner personality of man, our own, then we will come to the basis of belief, the real genuine religion. We will come to know whether life is of 5 minutes or of eternity, where there is a God in the universe or none. This is what Raja Yoga proposes to teach. So, in Raja Yoga, blind faith is not necessary, only assurance that we will gain our own experience, that will prompt us to practice. Again he says that Raja Yoga takes a long time and constant practice. There is a sutra in Patanjali about this. Dirgha Kala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Dridabhumi. Satu Dirgha Kala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Dridabhumi. It becomes firm only when practiced for a long time with love and respect. Satkara Sevito. Nairantarya. That means no French leave is allowed. We must practice regularly. So now we come to this para. This is all recapitulation. According to the Raja Yoga. Okay, got it? The external world is but the gross form of the internal or subtle. That means there is gross and there is subtle, and they are related. Subtle external form is gross. So actually inside there is unity between the two. Body affects the mind, mind affects the body. The finer is always the cause, the grosser the effect. So the external world is the effect, the internal the cause. In the same way, external forces are simply the grosser parts, of which the internal forces are the finer. The man who has discovered and learned how to manipulate the internal forces will get the whole of nature under his control. The yogi proposes to himself no less a task than to master the whole universe, to control the whole of nature. Because this involves another point, that internal nature and external, not only our body, but the entire universe is connected. So our internal nature, if we conquer, we can conquer the entire universe. He wants to arrive at that point where what we call nature's laws will have no influence over him, where he will be able to get beyond them all. He will be the master of the whole of nature, internal and external. So it is not an easy task. This is what we are going to do. The progress and civilization of the human race simply means controlling this nature. To understand, example, a small child has no control over its limbs. Restlessness is its nature. And as he grows, he gains more and more control over himself. And then he learns how to live in the life in the world. So from this example you understand the real growth depends upon more and more control over ourselves, and then we gain control over the world. Different races take to different processes of controlling nature. That is the constitution of man. Depends upon the country where they live. Just as in the same society, Swamiji is explaining different countries, different tendencies. To understand that, within a society Swamiji will show differences. Just as in the same society, some individuals want to control the external nature and others the internal. You see, in India, people are running after controlling the external nature, but there are yogis and sadhakas who control their own inner nature. So among races, some want to control the external nature and others the internal. So this very thing reflected outside is like this. Some say that by controlling internal nature we control everything. Others that by controlling external nature we control everything. But that is an appearance. Internal nature will escape you. But if you can control the internal nature, it is the gross form, is the external. Carried to the extreme, both are right. Because in nature there is no such division as internal or external. Subtler and gross goes on interchanging. Carried to the extreme, that means if we can control the whole of external nature, that includes the internal nature. These are fictitious limitations that never existed. It's a seamless process. Settle to gross and gross to settle. Continuously this is happening. You know, our mind is made by our food. Directly it is proved in Chandogya Upanishad through experimentation. The father asked the son, don't eat food for 14 days and come to me on the 15th day. Drink water, because water is enough to keep the body going on. So he does like that. And when he comes back, simple questions, he does not remember anything, the mind does not work at all, the body is working. Then the father says, now eat a little and come back. Then he is able to answer everything. So mind is made from matter only. So this is continuously acting and interacting on each other. The externalist and the internalist are destined to meet at the same point when both reach the extreme of their knowledge. If we can go to the extreme, then this will happen. Just as a physicist, when he pushes his knowledge to its limits, finds it melting away into metaphysics, so a metaphysician will find that what he calls mind and matter are but apparent distinctions, the reality being one. Now this is going beyond Patanjali, reality being one. The end and aim of all science is to find the unity. It's a fact that when Swamiji was lecturing in Europe, many top scientists used to attend his lectures. And they used to say, we are getting a direction in the study of our subject due to your lectures. We understand that the whole progress has to be towards the unity only. The one out of which the manifold is being manufactured. That one existing as many. Mind you, clear distinction. Patanjali does not believe also in this. Textbook for method is Patanjali, that's all. Raja Yoga proposes to start from the internal world to study internal nature and through that control the whole, both internal and external. It is a very old attempt. Swamiji in the beginning told, thousands of years researches are going on in the internal nature. That is the Indian mind. Now we have become more westernized than we are Indian. India has been its special stronghold, but it was also attempted by other nations. In Western countries, it was regarded as mysticism, and people who wanted to practice it were either burned or killed as witches and sorcerers. You understand this? In India, for various reasons, it fell into the hands of persons who destroyed 90% of their knowledge and tried to make a great secret of the remainder. That means special authority we have on this. In modern times, many so-called teachers have arisen in the West worse than those of India, because the latter knew something while these modern exponents know nothing. Swamiji's constant theme is there. The more ancient a commentator, the better he is telling. The more modern a commentator, he knows nothing. Mind has become grass. Now, this is the main point Swamiji wants to tell in the introduction, that nothing secret should be there. Everything is open. You are getting internal perception. You need not keep it secret. If you keep it secret, then all sorts of bad things happen. Anything that is secret and mysterious in these systems of yoga should be at once rejected. The best guide in life is strength. This is Swamiji's Vedantic view. If you are getting strength, then you are going right direction. If you are becoming weak, your direction is wrong. In religion, as in all other matters, discard everything that weakens you. Have nothing to do with it. Mystery mongering weakens the human brain. It has well nigh destroyed yoga, one of the grandest of sciences. That means yoga and tantra are all going after mystery mongering. From the time it was discovered, more than 4,000 years ago, yoga was perfectly delineated, formulated and preached in India. So it is an ancient science. It is a striking fact that the more modern the commentator, the greater the mistakes he makes, while the more ancient the writer, the more rational he is. Swamiji has shown that the language they don't understand. There is in the Vedas reference to prana. The moderns translate it as breathing. Swamiji is the original energy prana. Most of the modern writers talk of all sorts of mystery. Thus yoga fell into the hands of a few persons who made it a secret instead of letting the full blaze of daylight and reason fall upon it. And why they are doing so? They did so that they might have the powers to themselves. It's all selfishness, monopolization that makes it a secret. Just like in the field of warfare or science, atomic secret, this secret, they make it a secret. Other countries should not know. Same thing happened in the system of yoga. In the first place, there is no mystery in what I teach. Swamiji is telling something very openly. While little I know, I will tell you. So far as I can reason it out, I will do so. But as to what I do not know, I will simply tell you what the books say. Two things Swamiji is telling. What I know, experience, that I will tell you. Reason does not go everywhere, but whatever I can reason, I will reason it. And some things which is written in the books, I will tell you this is in the book. You verify. Very candid, huh? It is wrong to believe blindly. You must exercise your own reason and judgment. You must practice. And see whether these things happen or not. That is the main thing. How to verify? You practice it. Just as you would take up any other science, exactly in the same manner you should take up this science for study, this science. there is neither mystery nor danger in it. So far as it is true, it ought to be preached in the public streets in broad daylight. Any attempt to mystify these things is productive of great danger, because then science becomes distorted, and any distorted science is dangerous only. Before proceeding further, now important point, I will tell you a little of the Sankhya philosophy upon which the whole of Raja Yoga is based, Patanjali's Raja Yoga especially. According to the Sankhya philosophy, the genesis of perception is as follows. So, this is called epistemology. Genesis of perception, how we perceive things. The affections of external objects are carried by the outer instruments to their respective brain centers or organs. These eyes are not eyes. This is the place where the eyes function. Nose, ears, they are only the sockets where the organs function. But they catch and give it to the organs. The organs carry the affections to the mind to the determinative faculty, buddhi. From this the Purusha receives them, consciousness, when perception results. So perception is consciousness, Otherwise, science describes all the process, Erase, entering, but how the knowledge comes? So this, I see this, but how do I know that I see this? So this element of knowledge comes only when the Purusha is there. Next he gives the order back, as it were, to the motor centers to do the needful. In our body there are motor nerves and sensory nerves. So sensory nerves carry it to the mind, buddhi and Atman. Then Atman gives orders, then it is carried to the motor nerves and they make us act. With the exception of the Purusha, all of these are material. But the mind is much finer matter than the external instruments. External instruments, inside instruments are subtle, mind is also subtle. That material of which the mind is composed goes also to form the subtle matter called tanmatras. That means matter, we see how it is made of subtle matter which cannot be perceived. Oh, this is an important point. It is made of tanmatras. Tanmatra means that much. I will try to explain this. In the physical sciences we hear of 92 elements and now the number has gone much beyond 100. But the nuclear physics told us they are not elements at all. Inside proton and several electrons. Now, what matter is composed of? What happens? The science takes things as objects and analyzes. The Indian philosophies take the experience of man and analyzes. Now, we see, is it not? So, to understand intellectually, it is actually yogi's perception. In the matter, there has to be something which results in our seeing. We hear. So, the matter must contain something which gives this hearing. So, we have only 5 senses. So, the matter, if there is more than that, it is of no, we do not know it at all. We know the external matter only what our 5 senses are giving us. So, the element, if really we call, to some extent it can be compared with the electron. You know, photon and so many particles are being discovered. Photon is that which makes us see. So like that, we hear, touch, see, taste and smell. Other than that, if there is anything in the world, we do not know. The whole world is a combination of some things which we can perceive through these five senses. That is called tanmatra. That only. When it is combined with other things, then we actually see. You understand tanmatra now? The element which is the root of our perception. Five only. These become gross and make the external matter. Gross means they combine, become gross, become the external matter. That is the psychology of the Sankhya. So that between the intellect and the grosser matter outside, there is only a difference in degree. Buddhi is the finest. Mind is a little less. Indriyas are still less. Outside matter is gross. The Purusha is the only thing which is immaterial. Now this word should be carefully handled. In normal English language, that which has no value is called immaterial. Here that is not the meaning. It is not made of matter. Immaterial, not made of matter. Consciousness, not subtle nor gross. The mind is an instrument, as it were, in the hands of the soul, through which the soul catches external objects. The mind is constantly changing and vacillating and can, when perfected, either attach itself to several organs, to one or to none. When perfected. Five organs are there. Mind can simultaneously attach to all the five. Or concentration only seeing, nothing else. Or mind can become free without attachment to the external organ. All is possible by practice. For instance, if I hear the clock with great attention, I will not perhaps say anything, although my eyes may be open, showing that the mind was not attached to the seeing organ, while it was to the hearing organ. One great story is told of this incident. One man is catching fish, angling, and some traveler is going, and he asks him that, can you tell me such and such place where in any direction? No talk. 4 or 5 times he asks, there is absolutely no response. Then he goes further away. Now he has caught his fish. Then he calls him, sir, what were you asking? He said, I was catching the fish. Only I could understand something you are talking. Beyond that, nothing. Real. But the perfected mind can be attached to all the organs simultaneously. It has the reflective power of looking back into its own depths. This reflective power is what the yogi wants to attain. Again and again we are coming to that. By concentrating the powers of the mind and turning them inwards, he seeks to know what is happening inside. There is in this no question of mere belief. It is the analysis arrived at by certain philosophers. Modern physiologists tell us that the eyes are not the organs of vision, but that the organ is in one of the nerve centers of the brain. And so with all the senses, they also tell us that these centers are formed of the same material as the brain itself. Grey matter they call it. The Sankhya also tell us the same thing. The former is a statement on the physical side and the latter on the psychological side, yet both are the same. Our field of research lies beyond this. By controlling this, we want to go beyond. The yogi proposes to attain the fine state of perception in which he can perceive all the different mental states. One can perceive how the sensation is traveling, how the mind is receiving it, how it is going to the determinative faculty, and how this gives it to the Purusha. As each science requires certain preparations and has its own method, which must be followed before it could be understood, even so in the Raja Yoga. So you want to understand Raja Yoga, you must practice this. You must find, you see, Shabda, Artha and Jnana. Shabda is the external stimuli. Artha is what happens in our nerves. And Jnana is the reaction of Buddhi. So these three happen so quickly we are not aware of that. But by reflection and concentration, we can separately see this sensation has come, this has travelled like this is the reaction. There must be mental perception of all of them. Now perception word is used, but this perception does not mean we can see or hear. But the mind becomes strong enough to perceive. One can perceive how the sensation is travelling, how the mind is receiving it, and how it gives to the Purusha, this over. Even so in the Raja Yoga, certain regulations as to food are necessary. You see, if you want to practice Raja Yoga, restriction on food. We must use, Swamiji is generally stating, not particularizing. We must use that food which brings us the purest mind. Swamiji give an example now between vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. If you go into a menagerie means where zoo and animals are kept, you will find this demonstrated at once. You see the elephants, huge animals, but calm and gentle. And if you go toward the cages of the lions and tigers, you find them restless, showing how much difference has been made by food. You understand this? Elephants are vegetarians, and tigers and lions are flesh eaters. All the forces that are working in this body have been produced out of food. We see that every day. If you begin to fast, Swamiji is showing that, Chandogya test. If you begin to fast, first your body will get weak, the physical forces will suffer, then after a few days the mental forces will suffer also. First memory will fail. Then comes a point when you are not able to think, much less to pursue any course of reasoning. Buddhi tak jai nahi sakte. We have therefore to take care what sort of food we eat at the beginning. In the beginning, when the mind becomes strong, then it does not affect. And when we have got strength enough, when our practice is well advanced, we need not be so careful in this respect. While the plant is growing, it must be hedged around, lest it be injured. But when it becomes a tree, the hedges are taken away. It is strong enough to withstand all results. So about food, something more. A yogi must avoid the two extremes of luxury and austerity, whole lifestyle. He must not fast nor taunt his flesh. He who does so, says the Gita, cannot be a yogi. So Swamiji referring to Gita, not only Patanjali. He who fasts, he who keeps awake, he who sleeps much, he who works too much, he who does no work, none of these can be a yogi. Gita, 6th chapter, 16th shloka. So, Swamiji has given, this is the full introduction. Psychology has explained, we must practice, he has explained, and we should start by regulating our food, he has explained. Now we go to the second chapter. The first steps. That means this Patanjali Yoga is called Ashtanga Yoga. So how to start? Raja Yoga is divided into 8 steps. This Anga should not be translated as parts. Anga is always steps. The first is Yama. What is Yama? Translate this word, yama. General rules. If you want to remain a man, you must follow these rules. Whether you want to advance or not is not the question. If you want to remain a man on the human level, you must practice. That is called yama. Yama, general rules for humanity. Patanjali is prescribing, because if you are not a normal man, how can you proceed? Then niyama. Niyama means special rules if you want to become a yogi. If you want to advance that side, then special rules you have to follow. That is niyama. So yama, non-killing, ahimsa, truthfulness, satyavachan, non-stealing, asteya, continence, brahmacharya, and non-receiving of any gifts. What happens if you receive gifts? Mind becomes mortgaged to that person. Mortgage means you have your property, and because you have no money, you mortgage your house, you cannot use it. That is called mortgage. I will give two examples. One from the outside society, one from, now, my friend, Purna Kamananda. He is in Mangalore now. He was the head of the Mangalore Center and now retired and staying in Mangalore. Now he was in Mumbai. Actually, I was posted to Mumbai in his place because he was going to Mauritius. Now in Mumbai Ashram connected, some very rich persons were there, two sisters. Now in foreign countries, it is difficult to color our clothes. So they use the colored cloth itself. So these two sisters, they got two shirts stitched for the Swami and presented to him because they are going to Mauritius. He took them, simple thing. But he could not remain in Mauritius. Within 6 months he came back. And then he was posted to, first in Nepal, our Arunachal sometime, and then to Mangalore. Now when he was in Mumbai on his return, these sisters came. A simple incident I am telling, but it is very fresh in my memory. And they said that, those were the days of cassettes. They brought 2 blank cassettes. Swami was a very good singer with a sweet voice and very nice bhajan singing. So they said, Swami, will you please record some of your songs in these 2 cassettes? Everything appears very simple, na? But the Swami's mind is very pure. As they left, he said, I had accepted the shirts, now I must sing. You understand? You become obliged to that person. Now in the external world, this is the root of all the corruption in the countries. In our first independent government, there was a businessman, Mundada, and he presented one jeep to every minister and even to our ambassador in London, Krishna Menon, and finance minister, T.T. Krishnamachari, and then got many things done in his favor. It became such a huge scandal, T.T. Krishnamachari had to resign. Menon had to come back from London because he had issued the jeep. So, if you receive something for which you have not worked, your mind becomes mortgage. You understand mortgage now? And Patanjali is telling them as general rules. Now, Another factor is continence. If energy is dissipated in that side, it will never come to a spiritual health. So these are the rules. Now decide whether you want to become a yogi or not. You can hear lectures, but the first steps are these. Truthfulness. Let me tell a story about it. A funny story, huh? A boy seeking the hand of a girl. The girl's father is interviewing him. And he is asking, do you smoke? No. Do you drink? No. Any known bad habits he asked, and he went on telling no. Then the father said, oh, then your character is perfect. He said, no, there is one fault. Sometimes I tell lies. You understand? So whatever he has told may be a lie. There is an opposite story also. In the life of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, the founder of Arya Samaj, a rich man was very devoted to him, but his son had developed bad habits. So he asked the Swami, can you help me to correct this boy? He said, let me see, let me try. Now when he went to his house, the boy had some good sanskara, some respect, so he paid homage to him and asked him, Swami, what can I give you, or what can I do for you? Then the Swami said, you do one thing for me. You give up telling lies, totally. And the boy accepted. Next day when he was sneaking out somewhere, the father asked, where are you going? He could not go. Slowly, slowly all his bad habits vanished. That is the point. So truthfulness, importance I am showing. Anyway, let me tell you another brilliant example, because these are important things now. Introductory things are over now. I will tell you a brilliant example. I was in Mumbai, 79 to 82. One brilliant girl, she was studying in BA. She came to me and said, Swami, please teach me yoga. I asked, which yoga? Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. She said, Raja Yoga. I said, have you read Swamiji's book? She said, yes. I said, read it again and tell me what you find. Then she said that it talks of 8 steps. I said, examine yourself on all the 10, Yama and Niyama, and come to me again. Next week she came, or next day she came and said, I have tested myself. I am alright in 9 points, not in the 10th. She said, we, in a general way, we means we girls or what, I do not know, we make up stories to tell simple things. That means truthfulness is missing. I said, then change this. Attempt to change this. She came next week. She said, not possible. Make more attempt. She came another week, not possible. I said, make one more attempt. When she came in the 3rd week, she said, strange, there is so much space in the heart. Everything outside is in my heart. You understood? Understood connections? The first thing is, why she asked for Raja Yoga? Girls generally do not. She has practiced Raja Yoga in previous life. And out of that she has all the experiences. But they are thwarted by telling lies. She has not yet started practice. But the moment she corrected herself on this point, all the previous experiences came to her. I can never forget that. All the listeners, please, you understood this? How much important is this truth? And Swamiji is asking us to practice. without which we cannot understand even. Now other points, non-killing. Let me elaborate little on this also. It does not talk of vegetarian, non-vegetarian thing or giving sugar to ants. Not injuring anybody with your word and deed. Ill feeling should not be there towards others. This word ahimsa or hinsa in Sanskrit has come to all Indian languages with different shades. What is the Bengali meaning of the word hinsa? You understand? Alright? Hinsa? Jealousy. In Bengali, the word hinsa is used for jealousy. I will translate as ill feeling towards others. So if you have no ill feeling towards others, then you are ahimsa. Let me explain it through scriptures. In the Gita, for example, Bhagavan Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna again and again about ahimsa. And at the same point he is telling, kill him, kill the enemies, kill the foes, kill Karna. So this ahimsa is not ordinary non-killing. To Karna or Duryodhana or to anybody, he will say, I have no ill feeling towards you. But you have become a thorn in the society and for the welfare of the society. Otherwise, Bhishmacharya was a tremendous pure man. But he is supporting Duryodhana for whatever reason. He must be killed. Dronacharya was the teacher of Arjuna, but he must be killed. So, though the Swamiji has translated as non-killing, this means no ill feeling. Okay? Ahimsa. Second, truthfulness we have seen, non-stealing. Actually, non-stealing also should be taken in a subtler sense. Not coveting others' goods. I will again illustrate with examples. Suppose in a house, your house, there is a black and white TV. And you are normally satisfied with that. But when your neighbor purchases a colored TV, you feel, I should also have it. This is called stealing in the mind. You know, a few years back, there was an advertisement of a particular TV. You remember? Onida. And the advertisement was glory of your house and jealousy of the neighbor. So understand, non-stealing means not coveting possessed by somebody else. So you must take it in this subtler manner. Non-stealing, continence and non-receiving of any gift. Next is niyama, cleanliness. Cleanliness, define cleanliness now. Define cleanliness. I will give an example. You have a wristwatch and it is not functioning properly. You take it to the repairer. He opens it and has a small pipe. He blows that pipe and that dust goes away. Where it has gone? It has fallen in the room. But it is not where it should not be. Understand? Cleanliness? A thing in its proper place is clean. If dirt is there, the room is dirty. But if you collect it and put it in dustbin, it is all right. Because that is the place for that. In the mind, you have so many thoughts. But those thoughts, not useful, should not be there. So So cleanliness always they say external and internal. Example. Swami Saradananda has done this mental example. In Sri Ramakrishna's room, Saradananda Swamiji is thinking, why this Ganges jar is here? Could it be there? Why this knife is kept here? Could it be there? And he found that none of the things in Sri Ramakrishna's room could be in a better place. He has described this. Absolutely cleanliness. This is the special rule if you want to be a yogi. Contentment, on this I have to talk a lot. Contentment, I will tell you a story. Greek philosopher Socrates, a great man. Now in those days the government was doing everything in Greece. So people were free, they used to roam, gossip without any work. Now Socrates used to go to any group and ask, why are we born? What is the aim of life? Through questioning he made a few disciples, Plato and others, very few. Otherwise complaint went to the council that is disturbing people. And the psychoanalyst of those days, because he is dissatisfied inside, he is creating dissatisfaction in the society. You understand? He was sentenced for death sentence on this point. And what was his defense? We find that in Plato's dialogue. His disciple Plato has given that. Remember, a Socrates dissatisfied is better than a pig satisfied. You understand this point? All the researches, all the progress which humanity has made has come from dissatisfaction. And now, if Patanjali prescribes contentment, how we should understand it? Tell me, any idea you are getting? What the world has given you, you should not seek anything, content. What you are, you should never be content. Understand this point? So contentment from the external world. Grudging, grumbling, I did not get this, I did not get that, you get what you deserve. And if you waste your energy in these external things, you cannot have the internal struggle. So contentment in the things which society or God has given you, not contentment about your own state of progress. Of course, ultimately discontent will not remain. You will reach the absolute contentment, that is a different thing. Understood? So